one of the rungs, but here, instead of, very good. The focus here is not about him falling off, it's about the rung falling off. Because we know if a guy's going up the ladder and he falls off the ladder while he's going up the ladder, that's called an upward position. And if he falls and he kills someone, the person is potter. However, over here is the rung fell out. While he was going up the ladder, the rung came out and the rung was dislodged and it went in, and that rung, that step of the ladder, killed someone. So the question was, since he was going up the ladder, his body was in an upward motion, but the rung was in a downward motion because there was some movement in the rung. When you step on the rung tilts down. So the question is, do we look at that as an upward motion because his body's going up? Or do you look at the rung, which the damage, which was on a downward motion, and which was dislocated, and he's chayav? So Rabbi Yochanan said, that's called the Yerida Shisarach Aliyah. Rabbi Yochanan says that's called, we look at that as a downward motion, because at the end of the day, the rung that flew, that dislocated and hit someone was on the way down when he stepped on it. So even though his body was on the way up, what did you say? We go after the rung. Like Rashi explained, the Gemara's question was, you go after him, he's going up, you go after the rung, which is going down. And he said we go after the rung. We go after the rung because since the rung was on the way down when it dislocated, so that's that yechayev. That's called yerida, going down, sarach aliyah, for the purpose of going up, and you'll be chayev, be obligated galut in such a situation. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said before. So now comes today's Gemara on Zayin and Beis. We're about 10 lines before the white lines, about 3/4 down. You have it, Eiteve. You have it, Mr. Safdie? Eiteve, the first word of the line is Biyarida. Eiteve. And it's the last Tosfos on the right of the page, it's to the side of that, on the Gemara, it's facing the last Tosfos of the page. Eiteve, right after that last Tosfos. It was the beginning of the last Tosfos. You have it, Eiteve? Zehaklau. Now, the Gemara is going to question Rabbi Yochanan from the case, the language of the Mishnah. What did the Mishnah say? Ze'aklau. The Mishnah, after saying that it all depends if you're going up or going down, the Mishnah gave the two cases. The Mishnah gave really 6 cases, but the Mishnah gave, let's focus on the case of going up the ladder or going down the ladder. Where the Mishnah stated that if you go up the ladder and you fall, person falls down, he's patur. But if he goes down the ladder and he falls, he's chayav. Because the pasuk says vayapel alav. Pasuk says that if the damage, if the killing happened, the inadvertent killing happened, vayapel alav, when you fell down, that teaches us you have to be in the downward position. And we explain with the Rambam. The Rambam gives a little explanation for the pasuk because when you're going down, you need to be more careful, and because gravity is pulling you down. If you weren't more careful, therefore a certain level of negligence, and therefore he's chayav galut. Going up, you're more control. So if you fall down, it's really considered a real ones, so a real accident, and you will not go to exile. Chayav, yeah, but going up, it's considered a real accident. So if therefore there's a real accident, he will not go to exile for it. In order to go to exile, has to be some level of a little bit of negligence, not a complete negligence. Complete negligence, you will not go to exile. Right? That's how the Rambam explains. Now, the Mishnah, after listing us 3 cases of going up and 3 cases of going down, then the Mishnah, which the Mishnah obviously told us in each set of cases what the law is. 3 cases going up, do not go to exile. 3 cases go down, go to exile. And then the Gemara says, and the Mishnah stated, Zehaklau. The Mishnah said in the top of Zayin Beis, the Mishnah said, this is the rule. If it's on your way of going down and the damage happened when you're going down, go there, you go to exile. If you're not on the way down, in a gola, does not go to exile. That's what the Mishnah gave us. Now, after the Mishnah gave us specific cases, the Mishnah gave us a general rule. But what's the rule? The rule is Ze'aklau. If you're on the way down, goes to Golut. Then damage happened, goes to Golut. If on the way up, there's no Golut. That's the cloud. So the Gemara understands when the Mishnah says Zehaklal, and the Mishnah says this is the rule, the Mishnah is coming to tell us something that we might not have known from what we have learned until this point of the Mishnah. Because if we understand this point, we don't need without the Mishnah telling us, we don't need the Mishnah to tell us this. Obviously, if the Mishnah tells us Zehaklal, it's coming to teach us something new. If we know this without the Mishnah stating it, we don't need the Mishnah to say it. There's no need to say it. So obviously, the Mishnah is teaching us some new idea that we might not have known before. So the Gemara, Rabbi Vohu is questioning Rabbi Yochanan, and he's saying to Rabbi Yochanan, it would seem that one of these clouds, one of these klalim, is coming to teach us this exact case. And the conclusion of the Mishnah is different than your conclusion. Because you came to the conclusion that if you're going down the ladder, going up the ladder, but you're moving the rung down, and then the rung dislocates, you said he's chayiv galut, it's obligated exile. But the second klal of the Mishnah, what's the second klal of the Mishnah? The Mishnah has 2 points. I shouldn't call it second klal. There's one klal with two points to the klal. The klal is if you're going down, you go to galut, and if you're not going down, you don't go to galut. So the Gemara is understanding. What does it mean you're not going down? Like the focus of the Mishnah, shelo b'derech yiridaso. You're not going down. It's focused on the person. So what's the case of you're not going down? Is when you're going up the ladder. When you're going up the ladder, you're not going down the ladder. You're going up the ladder. And yet the Mishnah says, shelo b'derech yiridaso. When you're not going down the ladder, eino goleh. You don't go to exile. Which would seem to indicate that when the guy is moving up the ladder and he's stepping on the rung, and the rung is going and the rung is moving down, and then the rung fell out. Not that he fell down; he was going up the ladder. Meaning, the Mishnah had taught us the law beforehand. The first in the 6 cases before in the Mishnah was talking about him falling off the ladder, him going up the ladder. When he goes up the ladder, the Mishnah taught us that if he falls off the ladder while he's going up the ladder, he does not go to exile. That's what we knew about until the klal. The klal is coming to teach us a new law. They're not about him falling off the ladder, because that we know. You told us what the law is, but he's going up the ladder and he falls off the ladder. But this klal, by stating when he's not going down, when he's not going down, there's no galut. It seemed to indicate, even in a case when not that he falls off the ladder, when the rung falls off the ladder while he's going up, even though the rung is being moved in a downward position, there's no galut. There's no exile if that rung dislocated and killed somebody. Why? Because his body's in an upward motion, which is different than the conclusion of Rabbi Yochanan. And that's a strong question, Rabbi Yochanan, because you're asking from the Mishnah. Yochanan wouldn't want to argue on the Mishnah. So that's the question of Rabbi Vohu to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Vohu says to Rabbi Yochanan, "Zeh klal, kol shebederech yidasa goleh, shelo bederech yiridato eina goleh." And when you're not in the way of going down, which means you're going up, eina goleh, you don't go to galut. So the Gemara says, shelo b'derech yiridaso. That case, when you're not going down, la tuyemai. What is that coming? What is the chidush? What is that coming to teach that we did not know before? Lav la tuye ki agafta. Isn't it coming to include this case of when you're going up the ladder and the shliva, the rung dislocates and it kills somebody? And the Mishnah says when you're going up, when you're not going down, you don't go to exile, even though he was pressing on that rung. That's the question I Ravo on Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara shoots back So ulatamech.
That was really simplifying everything. This is the kalal, and that's it. Doesn't matter the wrong.
Right. And the klal is including the case of the rung falling out, and it's teaching you that you don't go to exile. So we don't go after we don't go say the fact that you're stepping on the rung and the rung was in a downward position. We go after your body. Where were you headed? You were headed up. That's it. That motion, meaning if in the same motion, meaning we spoke last week, we had a brighter that says that if you're going down for the purpose of going up, when the motions are not happening simultaneously, that will say it's considered going down. For instance, the guy's picking up the axe and he pushes down in order to get up. And while he's pushing down, it falls out of his hands. That will say that's called going down. Why? Because when it fell out of his hand, he wasn't in an upward motion. He was in a downward motion, even though the purpose of why he went down was for the purpose of going up. He wanted to get his strength. He went like this in order to pick it up. But at the end of the day, he was in a downward motion. So that we had a bright there that says, when you're going down for the purpose of moving up, that's called going down. But this case of the Mishnah is that you were actually, while you were going down, you were also going up. Because when you were stepping on the rung, simultaneously, your body was moving up. So therefore, we're not questioning that earlier point, that if you're in a downward position for the purpose of going up, that's called down. What we're challenging is when you are moving down on the rung, but your body is moving up. The rung is moving down, the body is moving up. Maybe we'll consider that moving up. And that's what he wants to say from the Mishnah. So Rabbi Yochanan shoots back, Ulatamech. According to you, that you understand that that's what the Mishnah, that klal is coming to teach us, right? We'll call it, there's two parts to the klal. There's the first part of the klal, kol shebederech yiridaso goleh. If you're on the way down, you go to exile. And shelo bederech yiridaso, when you're not on the way down, you don't go to exile. And you wanted to prove from the second part of the klal, you wanted to prove your point. From the second part of the klal, you wanted to prove this case. So now Rabbi Yochanan is going to say back to him, what do you do with the first part of the klal? Because the klal has two parts. What did the klal say? Kol shebederech yiridato. If you're on the way down, it's on the way down, you go to exile. If you're not on the way down, you don't go to exile. And you wanted to prove your case. You wanted to question me from the second part of the klal. You wanted to question me from the part of the klal which says when you're not on the way down, you don't go to exile. That's how you were, and you were using that as a refutation, as a question of me, right? Is that what you were using? Well, what about the first part of the klal? What does the first part of the klal say? Kol shebederech yiridato. When you go, as long as you're going down, you go to exile. What does that come to teach? When the klal states, the first part of the klal says, when you're going down, you go to Galut. Now, you already told me earlier in the Mishnah, if you fall off the ladder, that you go to Galut. So why shouldn't we say that? How are you going to explain that? Now, are you not going to tell me it means when you're the opposite of what you just said a moment ago? You can't tell me that means that when I'm going up the ladder and the rung falls off, I'm chayav galut, because you just told me from the last part of the klal, you told me if you're going up the ladder and the rung falls off, you're patur. And I would say, the same way you want to darshan your way from the klal in the end, I would say, I'll question you from the first part of the klal, which seems to indicate that you do go to galut in the case when you're going up the ladder and the rung dislocates, because that seems to be the chidush of the first part of the klal. Kol shebederech yiridato. If you're on the way down, What does it mean on the way down? It means the wrong is on the way down. You might be on the way up. You go to galut. So meaning you want to question my opinion from the second part of the Mishnah, but the first part of the klal would seem to lend itself the way I'm learning. But the first part of the klal says if you're on the way down, meaning we'll say it means the wrong is on the way down, you go to galut. And how are you going to explain that? You, Rabbi Vohu, who obviously is not going to explain it that way. Well, how are you going to explain? You know what you're going to say? You'd say it's talking about a different case. You're going to say it's talking about the butcher. Now see it. What are you going to explain that case? You're going to tell me that's talking about a butcher who is moving his cleaver in a downward motion, even though he's moving in a downward motion for the purpose of picking it up. He's moving it in a downward motion for the purpose of lifting it up in an upward motion. You're going to tell me that goes to galut, because at the end of the day, he was on the downward move, even though the downward move was for the purpose, ultimate goal of what? Of an upward move. So I'll tell you that here also, the sefer of the Mishnah, the klal, the second klal that you wanted to prove and you wanted to use as a question on me, that's not talking about the case of the wrong type of case, when the two motions are happening simultaneously, and you wanted to say that the case of the wrong, when you're going on the downward motion and the body's going up, you wanted to say you don't go to galut. No, that's not the case of the Mishnah. The Mishnah is not talking about a case when it says that you don't go to galut, there's no exile. It's not talking about when the wrong was on the way down. What was that case talking about? It's also talking about a case of the butcher. The case of the butcher, when the cleaver was on the way up for the purpose of going down. So if it was on the way up for the purpose of going down, let's say you were intending to move down with the cleaver, you picked it up and it was on for the purpose of going down. Well, let's say you picked up the cleaver let's say you go like this and you were going like this, but you were in the upward motion when the cleaver fell out of your hand, even though the purpose of the motion was in order to what? To go down. But if the cleaver fell out of your hand while you were in the upward motion, that's when you don't go to galut. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. And even though the intention while you were doing it was for the purpose of going down, but since when the accident happened, when the cleaver came out of your hand, you were in upward motion, therefore you do not go to galut. That's what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. That's the shalom b'derech. When you weren't on the way down, even though you was for the purpose of going down, you don't go to galut. But it's not telling us the case of the wrong. It's not telling us that last part of the Mishnah when it says when you're not on the way down, doesn't mean the case when you're walking up the ladder and you're pushing down the rope. Because if the motion that you were doing was actually pushing down the rung, even though you were moving up the ladder, you will not go to you would go to galut, because you're pushing down the rung. You're in the rung was when it was dislocated was in a downward position. But the case of the Mishnah is when you were in an upward position for the purpose of going down. That's b'shalo b'derech yiridaso. You weren't on the going down. You were actually on the way up when the thing dislocated, fell out of your hand, cleaver. And that's what the Gemara is going to say. So the Gemara says, the Tanya. We have a brighter, we have many brightos. We have listen to these following cases. We have 4 cases. The Tanya. Katsav shahoya mekatsev. The butcher who was chopping. Tanachada, one brighter says, Lefanav chayav. If something happened in front of him, he's chayav. La'acharav, something happened in back. I will have to just translate what does it mean. The Gemara will explain. Back of him, he's potu. V'tanya idach. Now we could explain, let's say, we could explain it, the direction of the swing, let's say. The direction was, he was in the front, it's chayav. La'acharav potter. V'tanya idach, and we have a different writer that says the opposite. La'acharav, back of him, is chayav. Lefanav, front of him, is potter. V'tanya idach, and then we have a third writer that says bein lefanav, bein la'acharav chayav. So we have so far we have contradictory statements. So if we translate it literally, it says if it's in front of him, the first writer says, if it's in front of him, the damage happened, the accident happened, was in front of him, he's chayav. And if it's back of him, he's patur. Now we didn't explain where was the motion of the cleaver when it was the back of him? Was it the back of him on his way up, back of him on the way down? We're going to see in a moment. So we're gonna explain in a moment. So we have one bright that says in front of him is chayav and the back of him is potter. Another bright says in the back of him is chayav and in front of him is potter. The exact opposite. V'tanya idach, we have a third writer that says bein lefanav, bein la'acharav, bein lefanav, bein la'achav chayav. Whether it's in front of him or in back of him, it's chayav. Now we have a fourth writer that says kan idach bein lefanav, bein la'achav is potter. Whether it's front or back, he's potter. So we have all the combinations, the writer. All the combinations, whether we have one writer that says in front of him and back of him, he's potter. Front of him is chayav, back of him is potter. One writer says the exact opposite. One writer says both ways you're chayav, one writer says both ways you're potter. So we have four writers. So now the Gemara answers the following. And the way the Art Scroll did a very nice job in explaining in number 38 that there are five. The swing has 5 parts. There's 5 parts to the swing. Okay. The cleaver, you start with, you have the chopper, we call it the chopper in front of you. You start with the chopper in front of you. And then you lower the chopper, you pushes down the chopper before he pulls it back. So there's the lowering it. Now, if anything falls out while you're lowering it, then you're in the downward motion, you'll be what? Chayav. Then you have raising it back. After you push it forward, then you're raising it back. So if it falls out of your hand while you're raising it back, so while you're raising it back, you're in the upper position, you're patur, but you're in up position. And then you're pulling it back, the chopper back, and now in order to pull it forward. But if it dislocates while you're pulling it back, if it was going down, right? I was going here I was, first I pull it down, downward position. Chayav. Then I pull up, then if it falls out of my hand, upward position, I'm patur. But then if it was going on the back, it was going down, I'm chayav. Then when I'm pulling up to go down, I would be patur. And number 5, case 5 would be if I actually was on the way down, finishing the chop. Okay? That's A, B, C, D, and E. Those are the 5 types of motions that happen in chopping of a butter, chopping a piece of meat. Okay, so now the Gemara explains that's how we're going to explain these braitot. We're talking about different parts of these 5 sections of chopping the piece of meat, and based on which part, and the bottom line will be the following. If you're on the way down, which we said there's 3 parts, there's 3 possibilities on the way down. A is when you take the chopper and you're moving it down first before you pull it back, that's going down. If that happens, even though the purpose of why you're going down was to pull up, we go after the exact motion where it was happening. So therefore, that's a chidush. The chidush of you see, in the Mishnah, the first 6 cases of the Mishnah, it was all about one, you were going in one direction. Listen, you're going up the ladder. You were going up for the purpose of going up. You were going down for the purpose of going down. The chiddush of the klal taught us that even when you're going down for the purpose of going up, that's called going down. And when you're going up for the purpose of going down, it's called going up. That's the cloud. That's the chidush of the Mishnah of the cloud. But it's not telling us about the case that while you're going down the ladder and you're going up simultaneously and you dislocate the rung, that the Mishnah is not telling us. That Rabbi Yochanan teaches us, that's we go after you go, that we say that going down. That's what Rabbi Yochanan tells us. So that's the Gemara. Now the Gemara is going to explain these 4 brightos in explaining these 5 different motions of the person. V'lukash, you got it, Mr. Safdie? V'lukash, can be a rida shalafanav, v'aliyah shel acharav. The first brighta that says, if you're going in front of you, you're chayav. In back of you, you are patu, right? That was the first brighta, correct? In front of you, you're chayav. So what's that case? Can be a rida shalafanav. When it says in front of you, you are chayav, means there was a downward motion. The fanav means the first brighter when it says in front of you means in front of you while you're in the downward motion. You picked up when you took the cleaver and you pushed it down before you pulled it back. That's your ridah shalafanav. And when it says in that brighter, la'acharav patur, when it says in back you're patur, that means v'aliyah shel acharav. That means you were in the upward motion when it fell out of your hand. Let's say the case the way we say like this: you picked up the clever, you pushed down, and then you started going up, and that aliyah la'acharav, that upward motion, it came out of your hand. You are, and then it flew and it killed someone. You are patu. Because say it again. Even though your intention was to go down, because I was pulling up in order to go down to get strength, I would be patu. Bryce. Now the Gemara explains Bryce number 2. Can Bryce number 2, where it says, Achurav chayav, in back you are chayav, lefanav, but when in your front of you, you are patur. So what is that brighter? What's the brighter coming to tell us? What's that case? Let's see it again. Can, again, the second brighter, good morning, Akiva. The second brighter that says,
Good morning.
Morning, that back of you, you're chayav. Remember, if it's going to be in back of you chayav, you have to be where? In the downward motion. So that's biyurida shalafel. That would mean I started over here. I picked. Here's the chopper. I picked up the chopper, and I went back. And now, when it says achurav chayav, means I'm on my way back. I was on my way back in order to go down. But when it says achurav chayav, means yurida shel achurav. The achurav chayav means if I'm on the way, I was on the downward motion towards the back of me. So since I was on the downward motion, even though the purpose why I went down was in order to pick up, but at the end of the day, it dislocated. The chopper fell out of my hand while I was going towards down. So that's called Yerida Shel Acharav, and I am Chayav. Because at the end of the day, I was in the backward motion, downward motion. Is that clear, Mr. Sevdy? I picked the clever, and first, here, let's say here's the chopping block. Or let's say maybe I picked up the clever is here. I picked it up. The first thing I did, I moved it towards down, and then I moved it. Now I'm going up. True, but then I went up. That's one case. But then there's another case. I'm going up, but then I go all the way back. Well, after I go up, I go like this. So if I'm on the way down, am I on the way down now? Yeah, let's do it better like this. One second. Now I'm not up. Now I'm not up, Mr. Safi. Now I'm down. You see, I'm going down. That's down. This is down. It's true. But if while I'm going like this, it falls out of my hand. Like this, it falls out of my hand. I was in the downward motion. But now, then when I pick it up, that would be birida shel acharav. So on the way down, I am chayav. But then when I come back, so then if it falls out at this point, I will be patur because I'm in the upward motion. Got it? So let's see. Fascinating, complex, very complex Gemara. So let's see the Gemara. Kan beliyah shelafanav. If I am in going up, I would be patur. V'yirida shel acharav. But if I'm on the downward motion, I would be chayav. So that's what the second brighter says. Lachurav chayav. Lachurav chayav would mean I'm on the downward motion in back of me, and I'll be patur. Let's see it again. Kan idoch lachurav chayav lefanav patur. Lefanav patur. That's called I'm on the way down. And you'll see in the look in the art scroll. See number 40. The second bright refers to the next two parts of the swing, motion C and D. As he draws the cleaver back behind his shoulder, C, this backward motion, Mr. Safdie, right? It goes like this backward motion, that's called downward, would require exile. While he begins to become forward again, that is he's on the that's called up. So that's the case. He'll be patur. Now, that's the case of so when we say lachurav chayav is when he's in the down when he's moving downward motion, but when he says but lefanav patur is when he's going back towards in front of him. One second. Lachurav chayav means when he's on the downward motion, and lefanav patur is when he's starting to come back up. Then he's patur. It's all about where is his arm swinging? Then the upward motion or the downward motion. It doesn't make a difference. The chiddush is even though it's from you're doing that motion to go the other opposite way. But at the end of the day, if the accident happened when you were in a downward motion, came out of your hand, you're chayav. If you're in the upward motion, you're patur. And then the Gemara continues. Because the question how do we translate the words, right? So now we say, let's see it in the Gemara again. Lokashi. We're gonna do the Gemara's answer again. Lokashi. Can be read the shalafanav aliyah shalacharav. When we say when it says lefanav, it's referring to you read the shalafanav. You're going down in front of it. When it says achurav, it's referring to the going up and back. So if you're going up, then you'll be patur. The next brighter when it says lefanav, the next brighter when it says lefanav is patur, right? It's lefanav patur. You see, the way to address your point, Mr. Safdie, is when you say lefanav, you could refer to if something in front of you could be first something you're going up in front of you, or you're going down in front of you. When you see something in back of you, you could be going back, you're going back. So if I say the word in front of me, I could be, there's possibilities I could be going down in front of me, or I could be going up in front of me. So that's what the Gemara says. One place it says lefanaf, in front of you, you're chayav. What does that mean in front of you, chayav? That means you're going down in front of you. One case is in front of you, patur. It's referring to when you was in front of you, but you were on the way up. So you could say the word lefanav, but you could be referring to something in front of me. Could be, there's two things happening in front of me. I'm in a downward motion or an upward motion in front of me. So the Bryce says I'm chayav. So when I was in the downward motion in front of me, the Bryce says I'm patur when I was in upward motion in front of me. Good. And then the Gemara says, similarly, again, look, come be the lefanav. Now, Kan, the other writer that says you'll be chayav, both in front of you and in back of you. What does that mean? I was going down in front of me and I was going down in back of me. And when it says I'm patur, both in front of me and I'm back of me, I'm patur, and I was going up in front of me and I was going up in back of me. How do you like that? And therefore, so that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, I was in the downward position in both cases. Therefore, when I'll be chayav, when I'll be patur, is aliyah shelafan. Was on the upward motion in front of me. I was in this position in front of me when I picked up I picked up the thing. I moved the chopper down. Then I was on the Leah Shelafanav. I was on the way up in front of me. And that's case one that I'll be patur. And case two is that I was on the Leah and back of me when I was on this, at this point of the motion, meaning I was going like this, about to chop it down. If it fell out of my hand while I was in that upward motion, I would be patur. How do you like that? I like that. All right, have a fascinating Gemara. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Akiva, have a great day. Yeah. What yesterday was struggling?